Hello and welcome back to another episode of Nick Tiffany's Movie Reviews in the podcast form. Today we're going to be talking about Disney Pixar's latest, Elemental. I remember seeing the trailer for this film, like 3 or 4 months ago. And you can kind of always tell visually that it's a Pixar or Disney style film. Their animation just has a certain look to it, whether it's the humans, the creatures, the animals, whatever. In this case, we're talking about elemental people, almost. Anyone from balls of fire to water people. You've got tree-like people and bushes and shrubs. And you've also got clouds and different cloud structure people. And the way the teaser kind of opened up was you've got this fiery girl listening to her music, not really looking up, paying attention to anyone else on the train, and you see how all these elements interact around her in harmony, and then fire's kind of the one separator. As she moves through, everyone's either kind of scared of her or trying to keep away because they don't want her to burn her leaves, or they don't want her to sizzle the water guy next to her, And so I'm watching, eventually she kind of gets down to the end of the subway cart, and the train jostles. She drops her media player, and she goes down to reach for it, and so does a water guy. And, a little droplet kind of splashes on her hand, and she sizzles. And they almost kind of, they lock eyes for a sec. It cuts to dark. You get the elemental cue card, and there's, nothing else about it. And I was sitting there. I remember sitting in the theater, and I was kind of like, is Disney and Pixar, are they doing a romantic comedy? Are they doing a romantic animated film? I'm like, this could be interesting. I mean, I was hooked. I was hooked already from the design. It's Disney Pixar. I will almost always go see what they do. The fact that this movie was directed by Peter Sohn, who did The Good Dinosaur, that didn't necessarily move the needle for me. I only really learned that after I saw the movie. The Good Dinosaur was fine. As a friend said, it definitely, I think, plays better for much younger audiences. For little kids, that's perfect. They need good entertainment as well. But this, I was so pleasantly surprised by Elemental, not just in this story of love that they're kind of telling, in this story of, can we, as two separate elements, come together and create something beautiful, as Pixar usually does. There's so many layers in this storytelling, and obviously it's not just about love, it's not just about all these elements living in harmony, but you learn that these fire people, I almost want to call them the Fire Clan, but it's not Avatar, but these fiery people are almost outcasts, and they live adjacent to Element City because fire was the last variable to kind of be introduced there, the last element to be introduced in this society. And so nothing is built for it. Nothing is ready to withstand fire and how they can kind of affect all the different makeups in the city. And so very early on, you kind of have this, as is the case with a lot of Pixar films as well, you've got a lot of undertones, definitely looking at racism, whether it's just casually or, hey, we don't like fire people. Hey, because you don't like us, we don't like you. And it doesn't go so much deeper than that. It's accessible for kids at a level where they don't totally fully grasp it, but they understand, hey, well, that's kind of rude. They shouldn't be mean to the fire people. They can't help the fact that they're fire. Fire can be good too. And so you've got some of that, but there's really a fascinating immigrant tale that's kind of at the core of this movie. And then the idea of being an immigrant child almost, and this weight and responsibility that you kind of feel because you're almost indebted to your parents. You learn and you hear the struggles of how hard they worked to create a new life, to leave their old life behind, travel across the world to a place that doesn't even totally accept them. And they're going to work hard, and they're going to create something, and they're going to bring a piece of that home to wherever they go so that they can create a better life for their children. And that was something, obviously you don't get from the trailer when you watch this, but I mean, it kind of floored me at times, kind of dealing with the themes of guilt and feeling all this pressure on your shoulders. Okay, I don't want my dad working himself to death. I'm ready to take the shop over. It's something I'm supposed to do. It's what he's been working for and wanting me to do for forever. And you feel, even if the characters don't, you can kind of see and feel some of this familial pressure. And as kids, I think especially, or teens or young adults even, it's really hard to tell your parents, hey, maybe I'm not as interested in this as I thought I was. You don't ever want to seem ungrateful. And I think the older you get, obviously, the more you understand some of the sacrifices that your parents make for you. When you're younger, it's easy to brush it off, perhaps, or it's easy to not make light of it, but not put too much thought into it. And the older you get, the more life you experience, the more you understand, oh, wow, they really, really sacrificed a lot for me, more than I ever know, because it's like, because I'm selfish and I know how much I like doing this, the fact that they work to the bone just to provide this for me is unreal. And I don't say a lot of this, I don't speak as an immigrant child, the child of people who migrated here, anything like that, first generation, anything like that. But, I know many friends and many people who are, and this is a fairly universal tale, I would say, when it comes to families in those stories. Generational trauma is another issue that this film kind of tackles, not necessarily head on, but certainly presents in a way that's really sad somewhat, but also really kind of promising too, because obviously as generations continue to advance, as the youth of now grow more understanding of their feelings and being able to articulate and communicate their emotions, adults kind of get a window into doing that as well, and doing it better than the last time that their parents did, or their parents' parents before them. And there's opportunity for growth, both in understanding you want to be your own people. We came here so that you could do whatever you wanted to do, and kind of rebuilding some of those bridges, whether it's religion, whether it's where you came from, whether it's something in your society, whatever it was that tells you, tells you, or maybe doesn't explicitly tell you, but heavily implies that, we don't talk about our feelings. We don't, even as men, we're not going to talk about the fact that we're feeling bad, or that we're depressed, or anything like that. And so having a main character in Wade in this film, Wade Ripple being our water friend, and Ember being our fiery young woman he meets. Wade, coming from this water family, he's the complete opposite of Ember. Ember, who is fiery and passionate, but can lose her temper. Wade is almost the opposite. He's so go with the flow. He sees the opposite side of the things that Ember might, the things that might drive her crazy. He kind of picks apart, and he's like, well, but this is probably why they did that. Or, why are you letting this get you so upset? And the two just strike such an interesting balance, this yin and yang, especially in a world where it's like, okay, well, elements can't mix. That just doesn't work. You don't date, interact, socialize almost outside of your own group as long as you can get along. And so obviously there's anything from whether it's interracial couples, whatever, just this whole idea of two people from two different places in the world who, for whatever reason, society thinks or says, oh, you can't get along, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't be together, this isn't right. And obviously feeling like, hey, well, maybe my parents might think the same thing. But who am I to say no to love? This movie was just, it kind of blew me away. I was not expecting it to be as good or as enjoyable as it was. That doesn't mean that I was expecting it to be just fine, but it really, really surprised me, just from the conversations it has, from the straightforwardness as to how this film kind of deals with grief and death, and not unlike other Pixar movies where you kind of touch on some of that, but very explicitly through conversations or just reminiscing about someone in their life who is now passed, unfortunately, and it just really, really fascinating stuff. I laughed, I cried, shocker, but I loved Elemental. I think that on a weekend where The Flash is coming out, and granted, I saw The Flash at IMAX right after seeing Elemental. Granted, I'd already seen The Flash, but needed it in the bigger experience. But after walking out of Elemental, I was like, I know The Flash is going to play better in IMAX, but this was way better than that. I mean, it's how I felt walking out of Transformers. I was like, I did not expect to enjoy that nearly as much as I did. Obviously you can wait for this to come out on Disney Plus. I went and saw it as a date movie, and it was perfect. I mean, we had a really, really terrific time, and super diverse audience, both in just all kinds of people, every kind of age. Everybody just had a fantastic time with this movie. So yeah, you could wait for it to come out on Disney Plus, but I would encourage you go now. This is the quality family film that we need, kind of in this cluster of blockbuster big budget movies coming out for the next month or two. So Disney Pixar, well done. I finally caught up with Lightyear just about a week ago. I don't know how I'd missed it. It went straight to Disney Plus. Maybe that's why I was like, who knows? But no, I quite enjoyed that one as well. So I think they're kind of trending in the right direction, I would say. The rest of Disney, they got some stuff to figure out, but you can bet on Elemental. This is a safe bet. Thanks again for listening, guys, and we'll see you next time.